I think that's why I do what I do. Is it's like people are like, why are you trying to run a mortgage company? It's like, well, it's a new challenge.
The door-to-door sales space is really high energy. It's really a place where you go to level up, no matter what company.
When you're in Peru, it's like they go to work to make the money for the day to feed their family. That's it, end of story.
If you're coming into this space to make a career out of this with wife and kids, it's not going to be easy.
Yep.
You're not picking the easy path. You're picking a hard path.
The system teaches you that if you get help, you're cheating. You're failing the system.
What is important to us is helping our guys become better people.
My dad used to say this to me all the time. It's like, whatever you end up choosing, you're going to be good at, right? So just choose what you want to do.
Adam Allred, co-founder of NineFold Marketing.
What up, everybody? We're excited to get back at this. I took a little time off, been traveling a little bit. So, Adam, I appreciate you coming in. I'm excited about this one because I think it hits home for like a lot of Utah people, summer cells. I love the entrepreneur spirit. If you guys haven't checked him out, we'll obviously get into where you can find him. But there's a lot of good things that he's been doing and building a company, becoming an entrepreneur. I think it's interesting. There's some roller coasters that happen. But like every podcast that we start out, Adam, I tell everybody growing up, where you're from, what it was like growing up. Because I always feel like there's something in, how you were parented or your byproduct of your surrounding and what kind of motivated you to get into what you're doing now.
Yeah. And Rhett, thanks for having me on the show. I'm excited to be here. I love the opportunity to like talk with sharp people and share stories and hear stories. And I love podcasts. So it's cool to be on one. Yeah, so I grew up in the military. My old man was in the service, Air Force. We traveled all over the place. When I was a kid, we were in Germany, Japan, all over the States. And, just had that military upbringing. So really good parents, like really, really good parents, raised with a good, code of conduct, with a good sense of what was right and what was wrong. And my dad was, we call him the colonel still to this day. He was a colonel in the Air Force.
That's awesome.
Jag. But I think that shaped a lot of who I am today. Obviously, was the opportunity to travel and see a lot of different cultures. And it's cool because if you have a good home life, which I did, the military upbringing is awesome because it does force you to have to meet new people all the time because either you're moving or your friends are moving. So you don't get comfortable in just one group of people. Yeah. Which I feel like has really helped me to connect with a lot of different types of people. Yeah. To this day, that's been a huge benefit for me because you have to constantly be you're the new kid or, your friends have left. So you got to fill in the gaps, it's been really helpful, but I had a good family life, a support structure to make that something that could be a positive where I think a lot of kids, when, they don't have something like that, they rely on their friends more. What's it like
growing up outside the U.S.? I mean, what age were you guys, kind of over in Germany or kind of traveling around? Was it just whole life kind of bouncing around?
Yeah, for the most. So we were in Germany for 4 years. I was there when I was like 7 to 11-ish age range. And then in Japan, I was like in middle school. So that was like 7th and 8th grade.
Yeah. What was it like? You enjoy it? I know awesome. That was years ago.
Yeah. Germany was like a fairy tale. You know, like there's the setting, castles and stuff. When I was a kid, I was reading like Lord of the Rings and I'm living in the place, where the Lord of the Rings took place. At least that's what it felt like as a kid, right? So no, that was like a fairy tale. We lived off base in a little German village. And so I had a lot of like German friends. We couldn't speak anything with each other. We'd play soccer at the bus stop. It was like our goalpost. That's cool. Just be in the street, kicking the ball around. So that was fun. Japan was a totally different experience. Loved it. But it was great. Really, really value those experiences.
Obviously, we chop it up a little bit before we get started on the podcast. But, I know you came back to Weber State, went on a mission, stuff like that. Why Utah exactly?
I left on my mission from Kansas. Yeah. I was the only missionary in California Riverside mission from Kansas. Nobody comes out of Kansas. So I was the only missionary there. But I always knew I was going to go to Weber State because my grandpa was teaching there at the time. He's passed away, but he was a professor of English there for like 40 years. Yeah. And my uncle teaches business. He does marketing up there. And I have another uncle that does like part-time teaching. And that was always like, I'm going to go live in my grandparents' basement and go to Weber State.
I want to know how you got started into, kind of the summer sales industry. And I've done it. Obviously, you're still doing it. But let's go over kind of some benefits, some pros, some cons, lifestyle, more of like a mindset type thing. So I guess dive into really quick what you're doing now, and then let's back up, kind of once you got started into it all.
Yeah. So Door-to-door sales. That's what I do. Mostly pest control. We've got branches all over the country. We do most of our hiring out of Utah, but that's expanding. It's obviously really, really competitive. And the recruiting is the most competitive part. Knocking doors is rough. You got a lot of companies out there, but it's really all about recruiting. So we're really a recruiting company even more than a sales company. That's where it starts.
And I guess my question is like, what sets your guys' company apart from everybody else? Like, what do you feel like your niche is, or what you guys provide value on that maybe some others, not that they don't do it, but maybe don't do it at a high level like you guys do?
It's super competitive, and there's a lot of really good companies out there doing a lot of really good things. Some of the things that separate us, it's our culture. And it's the opportunity that we have at NineFold. So with our culture, I think we really do care more about our guys that work for us than we do about the money. It's like we always talk about this as the money's like, it's like the barometer, the scoreboard. Like that's where we're going to keep score of things of how effective we're being. But really what matters to us more than anything else, I feel like NineFold's not really a company. It's more like an experience or a movement where we really care about leveling our guys up in every which way we can. So on the doors, doing really, really hard stuff during the summer, but coming home and giving them really valuable experiences that they have. So like, for example, in our culture, one of the things that's common in door-to-door sales is to do like flashy beach trips, go to Mexico, all-inclusive resorts. Those kinds of things are all kind of part of the culture, the hype. It's door-to-door sales is this interesting space. It's like Wolf of Wall Street meets PG-13 because you got all these egos and these this energy, and you got a lot of money that's in here, and you've got to it's really competitive of who looks better, this presentation. That's really common, are like cars and flashy beach vacations. And we do some of that as well. But like, for example, the last couple of years, we've been doing bucket list trips. So we took guys to Nepal last year. Cool. And we took them through the Himalayas, and we took them just doing epic things where they got to involve themselves in the culture there and come away not just having a good time, but coming away like really feeling like they learned something and leveled up in some way, got a different look at life. The year before that, we did Kilimanjaro. So we took the guys to Africa. We hiked up to the top of Kilimanjaro, came back down, did safaris, and the same thing, just these guides that are with us every day. They're getting to meet people and have experiences that are, I think, far more valuable to them than just a beach vacation. And we love beach vacations too. we do that as well. But
tell us about those last 2 years and traveling with the guys. Why do you feel like that was a better experience than maybe just hitting up Cabo?
I think they came back better people from that trip. We all need vacation. You got to get some time on the beach. You got to sharpen the saw. Life is busy and it's rough, and door-to-door sales is a tough gig. So you got to take care of these guys and make them feel like $1 million and give them a chance to kind of like wind down. But you don't come back from a beach vacation like, dude, I leveled up at that beach. You come back feeling good. You're like, I got to go back to work. But these guys came back, and it was like an experience that one they never forget. They'll carry that with them for the rest of their lives.
Give us some examples of what you guys did there.
Like one of them, the Kilimanjaro trip was, we did the most aggressive hike to the top. It's the highest freestanding mountain in the world. I think the summit's somewhere, I can't remember, like 19,000 feet of elevation. So it's really high.
How long did it take?
We did the 5-day one. So it was the quickest one we could do. So we had to be more aggressive. And it was incredible experience to, first of all, to be that part of the world. But then the interactions that we had with these porters and these guides, there was almost 30 of us in our group there. And we had 75 porters and guides with us. And they cooked for us, they cleaned for us, they carried our stuff for us. We played soccer. We made a ball of shirts and taped it up and played soccer with them. And these guys were making like no money at all. I mean, like $70 for the whole week to go to the top of Kilimanjaro and back. And so having that kind of interaction for our guys to see how other people live and to have some context for how grateful and blessed they were. And then to see how much our guys wanted to give everything they had to their porters and guides at the end of the trip, everything, see, that kind of experience is priceless. And that's aside from even the hike. So the hike was incredible because you're going through this beautiful part of the world. The initial first few days weren't that difficult, but the summit night, we hike all day. We crash in these tents, getting well below freezing every night. So it's freezing at night, fine during the day. And the summit night, they want to get you to the first summit for the sunrise. And that's like a 7-hour straight up hike. And at this point, you're something like 15,000 feet of elevation, 14,000 feet of elevation. So you're feeling it. And you're hiking in the freezing cold, these switchbacks in the dark with headlamps. And it was really intense. The hiking was tough. that last summit day. So that was already really intense. It was freezing conditions, but then you had this altitude that was difficult. They turned some of our people back. So my buddy and his wife, they said, your wife, she might die if she summits. This is how intense things were getting. So we're doing these switchbacks in the night, and it's freezing, and it's just, these hours are passing, and it's kind of, you're kind of losing the zest for the hike, 3 hours into this. Yeah. And these porters and these guides, they're coming back and forth up and down the trail, just singing songs to us and cheering us up and giving us a hot cocoa and, carrying bags for guys that were struggling. And some of these guys, all they have, we're up in the nicest gear, wearing, because it's freezing. It literally is freezing, We're in the best gear you can buy. And these guys are wearing like fleece jackets with holes in them. There was one guy that was walking next to us that kept going back and forth. He had like an old pair of church shoes on with holes in them. My feet were freezing, and I had hiking boots on with like 3 layers of socks. Yeah. And this guy had no complaining, just the best group of humanity I've ever seen in my entire life. I mean, they saved us. They looked out for us. They made sure people weren't falling down. They really carried us to the top in a lot of ways. Yeah. And so I think just having that kind of experience was obviously something these guys that work for us will never forget. Yeah. Dude, it's funny because like I went to Peru on my mission. And so I tell my wife, because I took my wife back, right? Took my wife, took my in-laws, took my parents. We did like the whole Machu Picchu, went out to the jungle. We did the whole trip, right? But I took them around to where I served. And it's the northern part of Lima. Clearly, once you get outside of like the capital, it's just dirt poor, right? You're talking tarps for homes. It's sad. Yeah. It's like with little kids, your experience right there is what I tell my wife I'm going to get my kids, which is, hey, the beach vacations are fun because we do them all the time, but we'll probably go back to Peru a couple times in my kids' lives as they start to grow up and get a little bit older, only so they can see how people live. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? I think the hard part, especially over the last 10 years, is life has been good. You guys have been growing a business, money's been great, you've been able to kind of do whatever you want. But to me, that reset of understanding like how blessed we are to grow up in America, even have opportunity, you know what I'm saying? Go make as much money as you possibly can. It's interesting when you get to go to like a third world country or go see how people live, it really sets you back and you're like, man, all this stupid crap we got going on at home's pretty dumb, It's absolutely, yeah, I feel that. But it's an interesting dichotomy a little bit there too, because those people that we were with were happy. They're so happy. They're so happy. And so on one hand, you're looking at this and being like, I've got, all these resources and I've got all these opportunities that they don't have because of this very, amplified life. Yeah, but then you're looking at them and you're like, these guys, they have community. Yep. They have simplicity and they're happy. And I felt like I was among happier people there than I am around people here, most of the time. And I think a lot of it, dude, and I don't know if you believe in this, but I feel like it's a lot of keeping up with the Joneses around here. It's almost the Instagram life. It's like, how do we get bigger and better and faster and, all that type of stuff. And we're all competing against each other. When in reality, like when you're in Peru, it's like they go to work to make the money for the day to feed their family. That's it. End of story. There's no surplus. There's no vacationing, so life is just so simple. And I think when it's simple, you just don't have a lot of complexity on, what are we fighting about? What are we doing tomorrow? Yeah, I heard you on the phone just barely. It's like, dude, I didn't know we had a meeting. We got, I got this other stuff going on. And it's just things like that where it's like that could irritate your partner. Yeah. But at the end of the day, does it really matter? It's like, no. And none of that goes on for them. It's just, what are we waking up? What are we doing tomorrow? God's good and life's great. And we just got to do what we can in front of us. You know? Yeah, absolutely. Why is that culture important to you? And is that something that you guys didn't have when you first started selling or doing door-to-door? The door-to-door sales space is really high energy. It's really a place where you go to level up, no matter what company you're working for. And there's good companies, there's bad companies, but that's pretty kind of the lay of the land is you're going into a place that's going to be really difficult, and you're forced to get better to be able to do it. It's all commission based. It's on you. You got to go out and kill it, and you got to come back. And so you got to learn a ton. The skills that you develop and the work ethic and all that stuff becomes, and it really is all on you. Somebody else can't do it for you. So you got to kind of go out there and figure this stuff out. So I had that same experience when I was coming up. I started off doing home security systems my first summer in Detroit. And then I went to Connecticut and sold garbage. And then I did 4 years of pest control, kind of bouncing around all over the country and had that same kind of experience. But I do feel at the end of the day, those companies that I've worked for were great in this. Some of them were good. A couple of them were bad. One of them was really, really good. But they were great at developing that type of energy and culture. All three of them, like this is high intensity. We're going to go out and like you're stepping on the football field almost. Yep. It's like this isn't a job. This is more like being on a football team.
Correct.
And you're going out to play the summer, and that's your season, right? Yep. You got to go out and go compete and get after it. But I think there's something more to it than just competing and making money, as cool as that is. And I think it's important. And as a business owner, since I'm the one kind of orchestrating this now, I see that making money is great. I've made good money my whole career at this. It's been really rewarding financially. But having obtained that, I now want my guys to achieve that as well. And I want them to achieve that financial success through the development that happens with them. And this becomes like more important to me than making money, is that development, because the money really is just a way of keeping score at the end of the day.
Yeah.
It's cool if you have a ton of it, but that doesn't, what really matters is what that reflects, what kind of personal development. So I feel like what we do here at NineFold transcends a job or transcends even just like a typical career. This is where what is important to us is helping our guys become better people.
I did pest control like right after the mission, right? So you have the mission experience, which I think is phenomenal because you get told no a lot, right? For me, it was like you're a third world country, you're learning a different language, you get told no a lot, you're walking in the dirt, like you're either going to be there or you're bouncing out, right? You come home and it's kind of the same thing. It's like I'm off to California selling pest control. The one thing, dude, that I will always be forever grateful about that first summer of my entire life was probably because I grew up in a household where my father worked for one company and one company only. He wasn't a salesman, so I wasn't born and bred to like get out there and sell. And hey, there was this dream of go make as much money and have whatever you want, right? And figure out how to be happy. So I feel like that first summer selling pest control was the first summer with the aha moment where it's like, whoa, dude, I can control my own destiny versus I got to go to work for somebody and be told what time I got to show up to work, what time I go home, and how much I'm going to make. And I feel like that was the biggest blessing of summer sales for me, was more of the mindset of like, whoa, there's other stuff out there in this world other than just doing what everybody's done, which is go to school, go get a corporate job, and hopefully something comes to fruition out of it. And I don't know if that's something that you guys kind of help people understand, or if, a lot of your guys walk away from the summer thinking like, man, I didn't know I could make that much money. And I know at the end of the day, this isn't all about money, but to me, it's about a mindset of getting out of the culture where you grew up and getting into something where you believing you can achieve something more than, being a byproduct of what you've always been surrounded by.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. This is a big part of the NineFold culture that we push, for better or worse. I know there's people that are gonna push back on this and say I'm off base when I say this, but I really feel like right now the world that we live in, the system is designed to feed the system, and people aren't winning in that system.
Correct.
So there was a Gallup poll that came out recently: 85% of Americans hate their jobs.
Yep.
And it seems obvious when you step back and you're not caught in the weeds of it. You get the broader picture of it. It's like we get kids sitting at desks for, year after year, being programmed to sit at a desk and do what they're told and regurgitate back information. Yep. We measure intelligence on this very limited sliver of, can you take a test? Can you memorize facts, details, and then can you present that on a test? And that's whether you're smart or not, right? That's what we say.
And I don't want to cut you off, but that's one of the greatest things I've ever heard before. And we brought it up in a different podcast, but the system teaches you that if you get help or you try and basically, I guess it's kind of here, right? It's like if you try and network at school or if you try and have a partner at school, you're cheating. You're failing the system, right? But the only way you probably are a successful businessman is you teamed up with one or two or three people. You put all your minds together. You have a vision and a goal and you're headed in that direction. And so when the system teaches you, if you're going to go collaborate, you're a failure. It's like, well, then you turn into, when you get to your first job, well, I'm better than my manager and I'm better than the VP. And why am I stuck in this position? And then you start having all this disappointment on like, I'm not moving quick enough,
And you don't see it until you're too far down the path.
Correct.
Because you keep getting these carrots held in front of you. It's like graduate from high school and then you get to go to college and that's where life really gets started. And then graduate from college and then you get into a career and that's where life really gets started. And then you get halfway into your career and you realize you're just a slave. You're trying to pay a mortgage. You're trying to pay your bills. You're being told how much you're worth, when you can go on vacation. You're told when you can retire. And then you're going to be replaced by artificial intelligence or something else potentially coming down. So you're just kind of in this place of quiet desperation, working out those years. And then there's that carrot at the end of that. Well, when you finally retire at whatever it is, 60 or 70, when we ground out your most creative years, we've taken away your health and youth, and we've conditioned you to be a cog in the machine, then you can be happy by playing golf and watching Golden Girls until you're dead. That's like the carrot, like that society presents.
So true.
And that's why it's not a surprise that most people that go down that career path, which they're conditioned to do from as a child all the way up through college, is to go be a cog in the machine, are unhappy. And I think door-to-door sales has been a massive blessing, whether you're with good companies or bad companies. The opportunity to go out there and say, hey, there's something I can by the sweat of my brow, by hustling, by a little bit smarter, a little bit quicker, a little bit more dialed in, a little bit more trained, I can start to kind of control my destiny. You get a glimpse of that. When I got into door-to-door sales, I had no intention of making a career out of it. I was going into the machine. I was, doing my years at Weaver State. And I thought maybe I actually didn't know what I wanted to do. And that was a blessing because I couldn't figure out what I want to do. I ended up doing this.
Yeah.
Became the golden handcuffs. I was making I would be in college. I'm making 3 or 4 times as much as my college professors were making in 3.5 months. And I was like, what am I doing here? But I was still, that programming was so strong in my head.
Our parents are pretty much the same age. The issue is when our parents went to school, it was the only way out. And then at that time, there's pensions. There's other things inside of being part of, kind of the structure inside of growing a company or being with a company where you got stock options, you got pensions, you got all this stuff when you got to retirement. It just wasn't like what's in the 401k in your Social Security, right? Like my dad set up pretty well. And the other thing too is you think of social media or the internet, like what we've got now. That didn't exist 20, 30, 40 years ago. And so you're just a byproduct of what your parents feel like was best for them. But understanding dude, we've got YouTubers that are 9 years old making millions of dollars now. You've got influencers that all they do is take pictures of clothing at home and they're making a lot of money. And so there's so many other avenues of making money nowadays that just didn't exist 20 years ago. And that's what I'm saying. I think what you guys are doing, NineFold, is awesome because it's the aha moment for a lot of people. And we do the same thing in my company. It's like you hit these tiers, you get these trips. And a lot of times people look at it and it's like, well, why would you do a trip? Why would you spend the money on the people? And it's like, well, you don't know how much that drives them to want to be there, and then opens their mind up that whoa, I could be a part of this. And even though it's a beach trip, dude, I'm sure the places you guys stay in Cabo, or if you go to Hawaii or whatever, we were just in Costa Rica for our company trip. The places we stay are still pretty high end.
Awesome. Yeah.
They're amazing. And so for a lot of those people, they've never done that before. Growing up, their parents never took them to Costa Rica, or they never took them to Hawaii, or they haven't had that available to them. So to me, this is just I'm opening up your mind that if you push yourself, you can have something like this and you can create these experiences. And just like your guys is, in Japan or Cabo or wherever you guys go, it's like, they'll never forget what they did with you guys. It's an amazing experience and it's amazing culture that you guys are creating.
I think when you go and work and provide a living for your family, that's noble in and of itself, right?
Correct.
You're doing something important. And I don't mean to demean anybody doing work where they're just working for a company. But I do think for a lot of people, there's not a lot of fulfillment in that ultimately on a certain level, right?
Yep.
They're paying the bills. Life is like a video game. You got to throw quarters in it to play. You got all your expenses to just keep the game going. And so you're doing something by being a responsible man, woman, and showing up and taking care of yourself and taking care of your people. That in and of itself is noble. But man, there's just, especially like you're pointing out, there's so much stuff going on in the world today where I think the older way of looking at it, like our parents looked at things, is just becoming more and more obsolete. Things are moving too quickly. Technology's taking off. It's at a rapid clip right now.
Yeah.
And I feel more and more like the only security that you have is if you go and seize it yourself. If you go and take advantage of the opportunity that you have with whatever that is, whatever skill set you have, mindset you have,
correct,
to go out there and really kind of take what it is that you want out of life.
Yeah. I think the other thing too, Adam, it's like, if you really think about it, the top 1% in the world make $450,000. If you look at Instagram, you think everybody's like a millionaire, right? And I think we lose context of actual reality, that it's like, if you make $150,000, $200,000 a year, you're actually doing really well. You're actually murdering it. And I think there's a lot of people that it's like, man, if I don't become a millionaire or have a unicorn of a business, or I can't exit something at millions of dollars, like, I'm unhappy. when in reality, it's like, Adam, if everybody did what you did, you wouldn't be able to make the money that you're making. And so there's a lot of effort put into this to even become good or own a business that I think a lot of people just don't have that drive or know how to do it. And I think that's, I guess, where we're getting with NineFold is it's like my first year of pest control set up that experience where it was the aha moment of like, hey, maybe if I try and do what these guys are actually teaching me, I've got a way out of the system to become a little bit better. And it's not always about money, right? There's so much stuff you learn in door-to-door sales. I think that you would probably implement to how you treat your wife, your kids, and how you kind of want to raise them a little bit different just because of the experiences you guys have probably gone through doing summer sales or owning a company or things like that.
And my wife, I was mentioning this earlier, but she's been in door-to-door sales for a long time. So she's with Smart Home. She was with Vivint for 5 years, and I've been doing pest control. And that's kind of a funny dynamic because she's the darling of Vivint. Vivint's the biggest door-to-door sales company in this space. They've done the biggest. They've gone the furthest with it. And I'm this pest control guy, like talking to her, and I'm going to these like Vivint events, and I feel like I'm going to get knifed in the back or something at first,
Yeah.
Like I'm this novelty, like, oh, here's this pest control guy, because there's this tribalistic, in the door-to-door sales space, like pest control versus smart homes.
Yep.
So she's their darling, like the queen bee over there, and I'm talking to her, and I'm going on these trips with her, and I'm the pest control guy, and then, of course, I've got to talk trash because that's what we do. I'm like, hey, guys, if you want to learn how to sell, you come over and do pest control. I know you guys are doing well with these smart homes. We really teach you because I'm the one closing the deal with it, right?
Yeah.
I'm the one that got married to the Kylie Frank. And so so we have that, like, just that energy in our house. Like, she understands what I'm doing. She understands why I'm doing it. She knows exactly where I'm coming from. And I can see, it's really cool for me to see how much door-to-door sales has leveled me up. And traditionally, door-to-door sales has been more of a male space, right? Yep. It's not that it should be, but that's just kind of how it's been. I think it's got that kind of more appealing to guys to go out and knock on doors than maybe girls. Like, it's a bit less appealing to them. That's changing though. And my wife's an example of that, like where she's the number one female sales rep of all time, just straight destroys everybody, dudes, doesn't matter who they are. She goes out and just murders them on the door. She's super competitive, but she's a sweetheart of a person, like super sweet. Can't say or do a mean thing to anybody, but just like dialed in on the competition and knows how to work hard and get out there. And just seeing how much that has leveled her up as an individual, and thereby leveled up our relationship, because she comes in with just like, she'll tell me in the morning, she'll be like, quit being a bitch. You need to get out the door and go handle this. Like, you got some problems. We deal with problems. Our problems are opportunities. I'm like, yeah, babe, you're exactly right. Like, she's gassing me up, like, out the door to go play, So we have that. And I hope that we can carry more of that energy into our children, to help them develop that sort of mindset that you really can go get whatever you want in life. And people have a myriad of different opportunities where they've come from, their upbringings, their communities, and what kind of experiences they've been exposed to. Yep. But I feel like door-to-door sales is that conduit for a lot of people to be exposed to a different way of thinking. And it did for me. It's done for her. I want that to be the same for my kids. I want my kids to do whatever is going to fulfill them and make them happy. Yeah. And I know it's not going to be doing something they're not interested in just to pay bills. Right? Yeah. So I want them to find something they're passionate about and they really love. My dad used to say this to me all the time. It's like, whatever you end up choosing, you're going to be good at. Right. So just choose what you want to do. Summer sales opened up my eyes to that, but I was decent at summer sales. I wouldn't say I killed it like your wife or yourself, but it was also one of those things that I didn't necessarily love it. Like, I didn't love being away from home. I didn't love the family, that type of lifestyle. So talk to me really quick on the pros and cons of going through that with a wife and kids. I've got a brother-in-law that sells for Vivint. He's done it for a very, very long time, and I don't think he's ever going to leave it, which kudos to him. He does very well. Their team's usually the number one team every single year, and their little bracket stuff, I don't know what they do at Vivint, but it seems like they're always winning trophies, right? Yeah. Talk to me about how you're overcoming this with kids, young teenagers, getting up through their 20s and 30s, on the retention of doing summer sales, them feel like they're missing out on summers versus just living kind of a traditional lifestyle. And give me the pros and cons, I guess, for you going through this for so many years and what you've enjoyed about it. Oh, yeah. So there's kind of a lot to unpack. Is there one? I think if we're talking about a traditional home, which, if you have a traditional home, you have kind of this division of labor. In my home, this is what I have. And this isn't forced. This is just an agreement, my wife and I have. She wants to be a mom. Like that's her thing. She wants to be a stay-at-home mom. And I want to provide that for her because she wants to be able to raise her children. That's what she's passionate about. Now she's slayed it and she's had other career things that she's done as well that she's been really interested in, but this is just her passion.
Yeah.
So I want to be able to provide that for her, but furthermore for my children. So to answer your question about how does this work with the home life, I feel like in that dynamic where children have a responsible, loving mother that's with them all the time, they need a father there a lot as well. But I think more they need a father that's to the kids as a superhero.
Yeah.
I think nowadays, I think that's missing. Like this, a man that's going to go out and win, and he's going to go out and kick butt, and he's going to do that no matter how he feels or whatever's going on. I think children need to see that example. And I think Summer Sales provides that, where they can see their dad out there hustling. He's not just packing weight on, sitting at a desk at a cubicle, miserable, hating that he's like going through spreadsheet after spreadsheet, but seeing him go out into an extraordinarily difficult setting, whether that's every summer or months when you're doing your preseason trips or whatever, and coming back, killing the proverbial mammoth, woolly mammoth or whatever, and bringing home the bacon, I think is profoundly important for children to see that and to be a part of that. And of course, you can do that the right way or the wrong way, like anything. You can ignore your family and just be focused on your career, and and you shouldn't do that, and it's not helpful. But you just have to find that balance. And so I'm always talking to my guys. I'm like, if you're coming into this space to make a career out of this with wife and kids, it's not going to be easy. You're not picking the easy path. You're picking a hard path. And what it's going to require you to do it effectively is to level up. You're going to have to figure out how to be better with your time. You're going to have to figure out how to work harder, faster. You're going to have to figure out how to be dialed in on your wife's needs more because you're not around. It's not going to be as easy. You got to make sure you know what she needs, sending her to the spa, whatever you got to do, getting her on that right vacation, taking care of her on the birthdays, making sure you're showing her a priority. You got to do the same thing with your kids. It just forces you in this space to elevate in ways that I think in the traditional world you don't. You can get a lot more complacent and lazy about stuff. If you don't handle that well, it's not going to work, right? No. You're going to have something breaking down. No. But that's kind of the invitation, is like, if you're going to come into this and do this, there's so many pros to this, but you're really going to have to dig deep and be a better human being, a better father, a better husband, a better worker, all of those things you just got to be better at.
Yeah. And I love your outtake on that. Like, I've never had that perspective on it. You know what I'm saying? So me and my wife, we're going on 10 years. And what we laugh about is the complacency side of stuff, right? It's almost like being at home all the time. We get in the repetition of like, I know what you're doing every day. I know what I'm doing every day. Hey, sometimes my meetings run a lot longer. We got a lot more going on. I probably won't be home till 7:30. Some days I'm home at 6. I'm leaving the house at 8 in the morning or 7 in the morning. We're running around all the time trying to run a business. What we've kind of ran into a little bit, which I'm excited of what you just said, was we run a little bit more into the complacency side of stuff, because it's like, hey, you're going out there to do your thing. I got the kids. And then we come home and sometimes the days just pass and it's like, oh, hell, honey, we haven't gone on a date in like 3-4 weeks. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? And then you begin to kind of bicker because it's like, well, we don't really have the me time or the us time. Whereas I feel like in the summer sales space, it's like, okay, here comes summer. We got to communicate. We got to figure this out. At the end of summer, hopefully we get to go on a cool trip and we get to go spend some time with each other somewhere, And so there's a lot of stuff to look forward to. And I think from what you said a little bit earlier is when you get kind of in that 9 to 5 space, and it's great that people do, but sometimes there's just no purpose or an end result of what you're trying to work towards together. The only reason I think you're successful, and I would say in my space, I'm trying to be successful, is you and your wife are on a path of trying to get to somewhere. And when you get there, there's another vision of where you're trying to go, right? It's never like you just grew a company and then you guys just stop. It seems like there's always a purpose. There's always a value that you're trying to grab to, and it's only going to help you and your marriage and you and your kids. And I don't know if you kind of agree with that outlook or not, but I think that's why I do what I do. Is it's like people are like, why are you trying to run a mortgage company? It's like, well, it's a new challenge. Like just being a regular loan officer just didn't fulfill me every single day. So let's keep moving forward.
I think complacency is death. I really kind of think that's maybe the only real sin in the world is complacency. Yeah. Like there's a lot of weaknesses. We have a lot of shortcomings, but complacency is just where things go to die. Yeah. And I think too often the messaging that we give ourselves, our internal voice, certainly the messaging from the world, is easier is better. I'm not passionate about spraying for bugs. I don't even know anything about products or insects. I do mostly pest control. I know nothing about it except enough to get the technician to the house. They can answer the question.
We'll go 5 feet up, 5 feet out.
I've been doing this for 20 years and know nothing about it. Right. I'm not even really a business guy. I have business partners. I joke around that spreadsheets are like pornography for them. They got to go talk to their bishops because they just stare at spreadsheets all day long, get all excited. They'll come and show me something like, bro, see what we're doing here? And I don't know if it's good or bad. So I'm trying to read their body because this is like a different language to me, like looking at an Excel spreadsheet. Yeah. I don't know that. But what I am passionate about, and it's good for me to be this way because it's forced me over the years to level up and not get complacent, is I'm passionate about doing really hard things, which is what you were just saying. Like doing difficult things is what makes life, I think, worth living ultimately, because the easy stuff, the complacency, ultimately fades into mediocrity, which then fades into suffering. I think you get to a point where you're just not happy, you know? And so having these points in your life that are already pre-planned, like in the summer sales environment, it's not easy. So if you're looking for easy, and if easy is your definition of what's good, then summer sales isn't good for you, right? This isn't a good experience.
Yep.
Go be a worker bee, you know, and go find a job that's going to give you the opportunity to, you know, not do a ton of work, just enough not to get fired and go and watch Netflix or whatever. This is going to be more of like you're going to have to kind of get ready for that selling season. It's going to be hard, you know, and you're going to have to get ready to level up there, and you're going to have to do that with your family, being part of that process and working through that, like, hey, going in to do this trench work, and how does that work at home, and how do you keep in touch with the family and visit them and have, you know, it's not an easy process. But I think if done right, it really does level up the whole family. It levels that you up as an individual, and then your family gets to be part of that process and to experience that. And I think that's really the only way to live, in my opinion. Yeah. Is to have hard things you do willingly.
We got a couple of minutes left. I want to talk, we were chatting, we were laughing about Jesse sort of a little bit because you guys had him, you know, as far as like with the company, who's probably been one of the best speakers you guys have had come, you know, kind of teach the kids or talk to the kids. I don't know if it's Jesse. I don't know if you've enjoyed somebody else. But why do you guys do that? And, you know, what's kind of your takeaway from it? Who's been the best one?
Well, that's a good question. So most of the time we've been moving more and more into that space of getting like big names. So we just had this event last week where we had Jesse Itzer come and speak. Yep. We had a bunch of other speakers. We had one of my buddies come down as ex-Delta Force guy. He's like gone through the ringer, survived stage 4 cancer, gone through businesses, combat, all that. So just bringing guys down there that have value for our sales guys. My wife spoke there. Cool. Because she's a legend and she just is so good at what she does. And then we had a couple other speakers. Traditionally, though, most of the time in our culture with our company, because we've been operating in a way to make it very effective on the business side of stuff, we've been careful about what we've spent money on. And so this is kind of more new territory of us, what we're going into. So I've been mainly the predominant speaker at our company. So like events.
We're just tired of it.
I'm the keynote speaker. And I'm like, dude, you guys have got to be sick of listening to me talk. But like we're on a budget, and this is I do it relatively well. So I've kind of been, and I'm really the only one in our company that does it relatively well. Like we have all these different strengths in our company, but there's no one else that really does that. So I've carried that for most of our, you know, it's kind of one of my roles is to be the guy to give the level up keynote address at our events and stuff like that. So this is really the first time that we had an event where that wasn't the case. Yeah. And it was incredible. And Itzler was amazing. Like he was super cool. So, you know, we did this because we're constantly trying to level up, constantly trying to get better and provide more and more value to the guys that are working for us, show them how much we appreciate them by providing cool trips, Nepal, you know, Africa or whatever, or Cabo, wherever we're going. But also these really level up moments where they can walk away from that just feeling like they can run through walls. And they did. And Itzler is just a beast, man. His story was so good. I mean, he had everybody out of their chairs, and it was honestly so good for me to not have to fill that role. I was just like, I'm the guy jumping out of my seat ready to go run through a wall, you know, like it was really nice.
We're going to joke around for a minute, but the reason Jesse's so good is because it's real, you know, like understanding, you know, hopefully he told you about how he had to fill in for, oh my gosh, who's the white rapper? Vanilla Ice. Yeah. Did he tell you the story about like going from trying to fill in as a rapper for Vanilla Ice, you know, and how he got out of it, to going to, you know, basically buying up all the muffins because he couldn't get into an event. So he knew the only way he could talk to people was, you know, buying up everything. So they had to come talk to him because he said he could give them away for free, to becoming like, you know, in $1 billion airplane industry, to having a wife that, you know, like his whole story is amazing. The thing about his dad with cancer is crazy. The thing that I love about Jesse is it's real. I think too much right now. We've got so many coaches on social media or so many people that are just in the rah-rah space, you know, and I think having that experience, because my wife and I saw him at Gary Vee's event. And when we watched Jesse, it was like the whole crowd was sobbing. The whole crowd stood up, like cheering. Like there was just an emotional movement because it was so real.
Yeah.
It was so genuine, and I thought like that was kind of an area for me where it's like, hey, if I'm going to be coach, because I've always had some type of coach in whatever place, right? You guys have coaching at your company probably too. But the benefit of this was like, I don't need a rah-rah man. I just need somebody that's genuinely had experiences and can teach me the way of the business and how we're going to, in your terms, level up, and I think it's super cool what you guys are kind of doing with your program. Give me your definition, I guess, of success for you. Like, what's your definition of success?
I've got, I guess, probably a couple of definitions. One is I really want to get as much experience out of life as I can get. I want to live a very fun, exciting life. Like, I feel like when I think about purpose, I think about God. So
Yeah.
that's where my mind goes, is like my relationship with God and what do I think my purpose is with God. And I think God has put us on this earth in part to have cool experiences.
Yeah.
To have stuff that you're like, wow, that was amazing.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes we miss that, especially when we talk about God, because we've got to follow all these rules and I got to be really obedient. And I got to be, all these things.
Yeah.
And we kind of miss the point that life is incredible. And like, there's so many opportunities to do so many cool things. And I want to take advantage of that. So that's part of it. But I do think, as we're talking about kind of this level up thing, I think what it means, I happen to think that heaven and hell, the more I contemplate on these things and try to understand God and his purposes, I think heaven and hell are not physical places. I think they're places that we make in our hearts and in our minds. And we can see it, in this world that we're living in. Like, people are living in hell. People are living in just incredible, like, vibrancy,
Yep.
And you make that by how you, structure your life and how you structure your thoughts and all these different things. So to me, to become more like God is to level up. I think ultimately that's what evolution is evolving through these experiences, especially the hard ones, to understand God a little bit more and to understand ourselves a little bit more and to be a little bit better and a little bit bigger and a little bit faster than we were the day before and a little bit stronger. That's what it means to become more godlike. And so that's, for me, the purpose of life is to do that, to level up through this awesome opportunity that we have in life, these incredible moments and experiences and challenges and trials and sufferings and everything else that makes this whole wild thing what it is.
Yeah.
And then to help other people do the same thing. And I think that's like full circle back to NineFold. That's what NineFold does. And that's what I'm passionate about. I'm not passionate about pests. I'm not even passionate about knocking doors. I'm passionate about leveling up, and I'm passionate about providing an opportunity, a movement where there's authenticity in that, where we love these guys, we are honest with these guys, we treat them well, and we do everything we possibly can to prepare them to go do something really, really hard that they're going to come back and have immense value from, and they are going to be better than they were when they left.
I love it, dude. I think you've hit a lot on the head, right? I mean, if you think from a godly standpoint, God only is trying to provide value for everybody else, right? Everybody's just trying to become like him, but it's hard. And if you think about life, the closer you want to become to God, kind of in the thing that you were saying, happiness, whatever that looks like, it's difficult to get there. Everybody wants a six-pack. Adam, how many people have a six-pack? It's hard. But we're all willing to go buy the pills and take the drinks and whatever it is to fast track this, right? And at the end of the day, like, you just can't fast track what you are doing. It's a lot of time. It's a lot of effort. It's a lot of sacrifice. And I think that's the big takeaway here with probably the culture that you're building is it's like, if you want it, there's sacrifice with the wife and kids and the home life. You got to. There's sacrifice with yourself. But at the end of the day, if you want to live a better life, that's the only way you're going to get there. That's the only way you have these experiences of true happiness, I would say, right? Joy. And I would say I'm kind of in the same space as you now. It's like doing home loans, there's nothing fulfilling about it other than a monetary value at the end of the day. But watching somebody succeed under you that you've taught or you've been able to kind of mentor, that's probably your true happiness, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I think so for sure. I think that's where you really get enjoyment. I mean, you have to kind of get there yourself first. And I think sometimes we miss this because we want to, especially in a religious sense, we think, oh, we got to serve everybody and sacrifice ourselves for everybody. And I don't think that's entirely true. Maybe at least the way it's delivered. It's like you have to go do it first.
Yep.
Like we're talking about Itzler, like he did it first. He's done something profound. So he has that authenticity before you can really come back and help people. But I think, in life you have two choices. It's pretty simple. It's not easy, but it's pretty simple. Is you can go out and kick ass or not. And you can kind of just pick what you want to do with your life, right?
Yep.
One of the secrets though is that life is going to hit you either way.
Correct.
You're going to get hit, whether you decide to go out there and take the hits or whether you're going to go sit in your mom's basement or whatever. The hits are coming. Life doesn't give you a place to just go coast. It doesn't. And so what do you pick with your life? And I think the choice is obvious.
Yeah.
It's not easy, but I think the choice is obvious. You can either go win or you can lose. Either way, you're going to get punched in the face.
Love it, dude. Love it. To kind of end this whole thing, and I appreciate you coming on, dude. Summer sales is always crazy. I mean, you're always in like ghetto, nice area. I mean, you're seeing all types of people, different ethnicities, the whole thing, right? Give me one of your wildest stories from summer sales, whether, it happened to you, happened to somebody on your team, something like that. But what's one of the wildest things that you've experienced doing summer sales?
So my first summer knocking doors was in Detroit. I think I mentioned that earlier, but
yeah.
I didn't know what I was doing. I was in a YSA ward. There was this little Canadian dude, Riley Edwards. He's one of my buddies now, but he's like, bro, we're going out to Detroit. You want to come? And I was like, sure, I'll go out and knock some doors. And I had in my mind, I had a full summer. I had about 100 working days, roughly. And I was like, I should be able to do one security account a day. So I should get 100 accounts at the end of the summer.
Yeah.
I've got no context. I'm completely naive. And I'm driving my car out to Detroit. But I'm like, that'll be that's like $45,000 on their pay scale right now. I'm going to be rich. And I'm like, I can do that. Like I've got the confidence and stuff. And my first day knocking, I didn't sell anything, which was super common for everybody. Yeah. But I put in like 12 hours of work, and it was the hardest day of my life working. And I was like, God, I didn't get anything from that. But I'm all right. I go out for round two. Right at the second day, I don't sell anything. And this is an uncommon experience. This is very common. I just don't think I had been prepped well. My expectations managed very well.
Yep.
So I go 2 full days of knocking, hardest work I've ever done in my life, and I don't have like anything to show for it. And the third day I go and I don't sell anything my third day. So I'm starting to have like an existential crisis, like I'm like, dude, what is going on?
Yeah.
Like I've put everything I know how to put into these days, long hours, and I'm not even really getting close. And so I'd been reading at the time about Gandhi and how he'd fasted like 30 days to get like the Muslims and the Hindus to stop killing each other. And I was off my mission. So I had this, man, if I just fast, if I just exercise enough faith,
it's going to happen.
That it'll happen.
Because God just wants you to sell security systems, right?
Yeah, God wants me to. And so if I just fast, God will be there for me. So I start this fast and I have this commitment to myself that I'm going to fast until I make a sale.
Yeah.
And so I'm like 36 hours into this fast. I've been missing the van that comes picks you up for lunch. And it's about 6:30 at night, and I don't have a cell. And I've never fasted this long. No water, no food. I'm like exercising all of my faith to get it done. And I'm hitting this breaking point. Like I can't even talk to people on the doors, because I'm running door to door. My mind's not working. I'm having a hard time walking up the stairs. Like I'm just physiologically like not working. And I'm like, I've got to eat something. Like I just can't I'm a zombie right now. So I walked down nobody was picking me up because it's past the lunchtime. I walked down to this Little Caesars on the corner that's like got bulletproof glass windows, and I have to slide my little debit card that has no money on it because I haven't made any money through this little turn thing, and then they slide me out of hot and ready and like this 2-liter of warm 7-Up. And I'm sitting on the curb in Detroit, and it's broken glass. There's shell casings, used contraceptives. It's just rough, dude. And I'm sitting there with this pizza by myself. And this is the lowest point of my entire life up to this point, like rock bottom. And I'm cognitive of it. I'm like, this is as bad as my life has ever been. And I'm eating this pizza and I'm getting sick because I haven't eaten anything in a long time. And now I'm just the worst kind of food I'm putting into my stomach. So I'm getting really nauseous and kind of dizzy. And I'm sitting there, and it was I kind of get a little emotional sometimes about it, because it was the hardest moment of my life to that point. And it was also like the most important moment of my life, as these are so often the case, because I sat there on the curb and I thought, man, I haven't been able to do this yet. I just broke. I didn't complete my fast till I made a sell. I failed at everything. Everything's stripped away. My ego's gone. My confidence is gone. My health is gone, because right now I can't even feel like I don't even feel like I can walk. Everything, and I'm just alone in this crazy ass place called Detroit. And I had to just make a decision at that point. I had to decide whether I was going to quit or not. That's what it boiled down to, is do I just quit? It's hard enough. I've got enough excuses. Do I quit? And, that's a sacred time in my life, because I had to make that decision. I decided I wasn't going to quit. I made this thing with myself at that point where I had nothing. Like, I'm going to do this, and if I come home with no money and I'm broke, then I will do that over quit. Yeah. And I didn't know what the decision was before then. I had to be at that point where everything was gone, and it was just me and myself having that conversation. And I got up, it was like 7:00 at night, and I went out and I sold 2. And the next day I sold 2, and the next day I sold 3, and the next day I sold 3. And within like 10 days, I was the number 1 guy in the entire company. And I had people call me like, who's this kid in Detroit? There's like 400 sales guys in the company. Yeah. And in like a 2-week period, I was up at like number 1. Yeah. And the owners are calling me like, bro, what are you doing? You're out there killing it. I'm like, I don't know, bro. I just fasted, and then I started making sales. Like, I couldn't even, it wasn't really like something I could say, I learned some epiphany other than that I learned about myself that I wouldn't quit. Yeah. And that made all the difference. And that's been the trajectory for my career ever since. And I've always relied back on that. That's always been more important to me than anything else. Like, finding that in myself, that when I'm going to do something, I commit myself, that I just don't quit. I've relied on that lesson so many times in my life since then. Love it, dude. That's a pretty cool story. Dude, I appreciate you coming on. You know what I'm saying? It's being an entrepreneur, being a businessman, kind of going through it all. Like, the one thing that I hope everybody takes away from this is like, the way to be successful is just, number 1, commit, and number 2, it takes time. I think nowadays everybody's on the fast track for everything. It takes time to develop skill. It takes time to be good at your craft. It takes time to be a leader or a mentor, or, run a business. And I think, one thing I would tell everybody is, it's like, just be patient. It's just not always going to come that easy, but you've got to be a byproduct of your surroundings. And it's great to be in an environment like you guys are creating, because it creates a lot of successful people. And hopefully you'll echo that. But more than anything, dude, I appreciate you taking your time coming on, and thanks for this. Yeah. Thank you, Rhett. It's been a pleasure being here, man. I enjoyed the conversation we have, and thanks for taking the time to have me here. Of course, dude.